You're listening to the When Life Hands You Lennon's podcast.
But in an entry-level film production, it's one strike and you're out. You're fired. I'm not calling you back.
If your goal today is to make a basket, we're going to make that basket.
The minute you create something, as soon as it's made tangible, you have a copyright in it.
How do I get our guys to sound that big, that full when they do the harmonies?
And I'm your host, Lennon Seahawk. Let's get to the show. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of When Life Hands You Lennons. It has been a while since I've released an episode. I last released an episode like 4 months ago. I've been quite busy the last few months. I've been working with a few clients. I did a cross-country road trip to see my youngest brother graduate from high school. I drove all the way up from Los Angeles up to kind of the middle part of Minnesota, and then drove all the way back. So I had a lot of fun doing that with my partner and my two brothers, and seeing some friends and family. And the work coming back has just been kind of a lot. I've been indulging in writing music and getting my catalog prepared for some sync licensing and pitching that to music libraries, which I should do an episode on that later on. I've been wanting to speak with some more people in sync. But for this episode, we have Talya Elitzer, who is the co-founder and CEO of Godmode Music. Now, Godmode Music is an incredible company. They are doing some really, really, really cool things. Their artist management roster includes JPEGMAFIA, LP, and Channel Trace, who was on the Disclosure album, Energy. And Godmode Music has helped do multi-million-dollar business deals for its client with the publishing company Hypnosis. So in this episode, Talya talks about a lot of different things. She introduces who she is, talk about how she got to where she is, how major labels are kind of dying and are no longer as relevant as they used to be. We talk about how Godmode functions and helps its artists become successful, and we talk about a few marketing techniques, digital marketing techniques in 2022 and beyond, because marketing and digital marketing has changed drastically. So Talya gets into the weeds of all that stuff, and it's just an incredible episode, and Talya is a wealth of information. So before we dive into the episode with Talya, I would appreciate a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, a follow on Instagram or Twitter. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm on there as well. Check out my website. I have some blog posts there where I talk about music industry news and some tips and tricks on how to market your music. You can also sign up to my email list there as well. That helps me notify you when new episodes like this are live. If you're listening on YouTube, give it a subscribe. Follow the channel. It really helps it grow. And lastly, if you or somebody you know would be a good guest for the show, I'm always looking for entrepreneurial spirit, musicians, artists, managers, publishing agents, sync agents, anybody, lawyers, anybody in the music sector. So if you're in this sector, in the show notes below, there's a link to a Google form. Fill that out and I will reach out. So without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Talya. So thank you for being on the show. I'm excited to chat with you. I've done a little bit of research on Godmode and you, but I'm excited to really dig in and hear what you do and how you do it, because this whole world that you're in is really niche and really kind of fascinating to me. So first of all, where are you based at?
I'm based in Los Angeles.
Okay. Whereabouts in Los Angeles?
On the east side, near Silver Lake.
Okay, cool. I'm up in Burbank, so
nice.
Not too far.
Yeah.
Yes, not too far. But so let's just kind of dive right in.
Sure.
Would you mind giving us a brief overview of who you are, and then kind of let's kind of dig into Godmode and what it is that you do?
Totally. I have been working in the music business for, I don't even know, 15 years or something at this point. I started out in the William Morris mailroom right out of school, and did that. Literally pushed a mail cart, and kind of worked my way up there, and then started working closely with a particular agent and worked on tours like Britney Spears to Grace Jones to MIA to Swedish House Mafia to Bjork and all that kind of stuff. And kind of at the same time, the scene I was living in New York at the time too. I should clarify, and the scene in Brooklyn was really, really happening.
Mm.
And this was probably like in 2009 ish. And I met my business partner Nick, who is one of the OG guys from Pitchfork, and he was learning to produce at the time under James Murphy, who's the lead singer of a band called LCD Sound System. And some people don't know anymore, so that's why I say that to kids now, and they're like, "Who?"
Yeah.
But and so we just kind of started throwing parties in New York, and we, really started having like a scene around what we were doing, and it really just kind of became a community there that was really great. And we would put out music as like a reason to throw another party. And it kind of just started there. And then I moved out to LA to do A&R for Capitol Records. And basically what ended up happening, I mean, that job, I'm very glad I did that job, but all the Godmode stuff kind of ended up taking over, which was there was an artist that we found who we developed and signed him to another label. And we were just like, oh, like the label was just so archaic and so, concerned with, more old school things. And we were like, this is kind of crazy. Like they were very excited to tell us they got us a billboard in East London. And we were like, okay, like that's cool, but what about, digital marketing? What about, this was at the time of Vine and all that. I was like, what about Vine stuff? What about this? And they like looked at me like I had three heads. And also that artist was recouped in his deal before the record even came out, which is highly unusual. Yeah. And we were just like, oh, we should just do this ourselves, basically. And so that was sort of the catalyst to what Godmode is today. And so we're a management company, we're a label, we're a publishing company. And we're really just kind of, there's a lot of responsibility for artists these days. And we have resources to support artists in kind of whatever way they need.
Cool. Are you originally from New York?
I'm from upstate New York. Yeah.
Okay. And what was it like growing up there? And were you always interested in the music business? Growing up there is like living in kind of anywhere America. It could be any, it was a great place to grow up. Went to the mall a lot and did that sort of thing. And, but no, I mean, honestly, unlike most people who work in the music industry, I didn't even know that was a job a person could have. Yeah.
And, as a kid, I was like, okay, you could be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, maybe the craziest job would be that you work in advertising. And it wasn't until at some point in college, I somehow had heard about, I don't even know where this came about, but I was like, oh, somebody's a manager of a band. Like, wow, what's that? I want to do that. And it was actually, I think that my aunt who said, she was like, you should try to get into the William Morris mailroom. Like that's where everyone starts who works in entertainment. And I literally didn't even know what an agent did. I didn't know anything. This was like, the internet wasn't as vibrant as it is today.
Sure.
And I applied and somehow got in. So.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
So let's dig into Godmode. First of all, where did that name come from? That is so epic.
There's not like there's not really like a good, origin story, but it was a kind of a cool name that we really just kind of liked the name.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said you do publishing, you do management, you do everything. Do you do like bespoke music production? Do you like, what else is it that you do?
No, I mean, to be honest, management probably takes up most of my time.
Okay.
And, I manage artists like JPEGMAFIA, like Channel Trace. And so those, being a manager is a very full-on job. But we do have the label, like some of our artists are signed, some artists that I manage are also signed to the label. Some are just label, some are just management. So it really depends on the artist. But that's kind of the bulk of what we do, or how we spend our days.
Sure. So what were some of the things that your artists were doing kind of during the pandemic or the last, 6 months to a year, and now how are you kind of transitioning out of that? Are you seeing a lot more like live events coming up, festivals, things like that? Like, how's that transition kind of been?
I mean, I was very lucky, felt very lucky to also be a label during the pandemic, obviously, because, as a
Huh.
manager, your main income source is touring usually.
Sure.
Um, but, we try to be smart and pretty nimble. And like, for instance, we have this artist Channel Trace that we work with. He was supposed to be opening on all these big tours. He was supposed to be playing all the festivals, but because of COVID, obviously all that got canceled. And so we were thinking, how are other ways that we can get in front of different types of people? And basically, he got asked to do a bunch of features on other artists' records, and we basically just said yes to almost everything, because really, just then, even though we couldn't physically be in front of all those different, demographics of people, we could still get in front of different types of people by, using the DSP algorithms to get in front of their audiences,
Oh.
and
Mhm.
it really, really worked.
Cool.
So it's been cool to watch like his numbers grow, and then I think now, we're back in full force. I mean, we have some of our artists, are still playing tours that have been rescheduled a couple times, but we're hopefully back in full force for the foreseeable future.
That's really good. So when what's kind of the day to day look like for you? Like, obviously, a label is very different than management, is very different than publishing. So are
Mhm.
you kind of overseeing everything? Do you have your hands in everything, or how does that? I mean, that's got to be just. I mean, you must work 35 hours a day.
I do. I am always working. Yeah, I mean, I oversee everything. I think
Okay.
sometimes, often, you know, for artists that are both label and management, they all kind of like blend together, and the label is really just like a tool that we can use so that we can spend money in the best way that we think, versus fighting with a label on how they should spend their money.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I'm a crazy person. I'm always very busy, and there's always too much to do. So
Always, especially when you're running your business. And
yes.
when did you start God Mode?
Well, it sort of had a few different lives to it. We started throwing parties back in, 2010, 2011. But it wasn't a full-time job for me, and probably until about 2017.
Wow. And what was it like? Did you anticipate it turning into a full time job?
No, not at all. Not at
Wow.
all. I honestly thought that my job at Capital was going to be my dream job, and that was going to be it. But I ended up loving this work a lot more.
Okay, and you talked about the kind of the transition of God Mode from Capitol Records, or can you talk a little bit about how you turned God Mode into the full time living? You were talking about how there was kind of a sketchy label and they were missing. Is that did I understand that correctly?
I mean, basically, we had an artist that we were managing, that I
Okay,
was doing on the side while I worked at Capital,
got it.
which was definitely illegal and to my contract working there and all that.
Yeah, I'm
But
sure.
it was my side hustle. But
Yeah,
I think I just reached a point where work, working at Capital at the time that I did was a very I think I had I had four bosses in 3 years or something like that,
high
and
turnover.
so it was a little bit chaotic,
Yeah,
and I just was excited. I mean, to be honest, I was sort of like debating. I'm like, should I quit now and do this? Should I wait till something is bigger? But I just couldn't. And I was like, maybe I should just try to work at another label. And then I just was like, I can't. Now's the time. Like, I don't have kids. I don't, that this is the time to kind of do it. And I definitely ate, peanut butter and jelly for the first year or so, but then you figure it out.
sure. Yeah, of course. So when you are you actively looking for artists to sign for publishing, or how does an artist get signed to God Mode's label or to their publishing? Like, what types of things are you looking for in an artist these days?
I mean, it totally varies. I think, it's really about a compelling voice, a compelling story. I think artists, um, really, yeah, it honestly totally depends. There's not like a set sort of, criteria that we look for. I think, unfortunately, we live in a time where social media is very important too, and so that's something that I don't care about the number of followers, but I care about just kind of how an artist is presenting themselves and that they're engaged and thinking about that creatively. And so like that's definitely a plus. But other than that, I don't think there's a set criteria.
Okay, interesting. And are you completely independent? Godmode isn't affiliated with a major publisher or anything like that, right?
For publishing, we have a partnership with a publishing company called Hypnosis.
Okay, I know
We
that.
have a venture with them, but for everything else, we're completely independent.
Okay. And as an artist, why is that beneficial? Or maybe not beneficial to some artists? Why would an independent label or publisher be helpful to their careers?
I mean, we our deals are a lot friendlier, and we are uh, a lot more nimble than a big company. I mean, having
Sure.
said that, though, a lot of our artists, like, it reaches a point where they're signed to us, and they do need funding and all of that from a major. And we do have partnerships with a number of majors for some of our
Hmm.
artists where it makes sense. So we kind of can operate in both spheres. But I think for me personally, I know how those big companies move, and I like to be able to move more quickly and kind of move out more in a more modern way. And that's, we're able to do a lot more uh, creative marketing, a lot more creative music making, all of that in a way that majors just aren't. They just can't operate that way. And even some friends of mine who work in marketing at majors are always like, "Oh, did you hear about this? I'm not allowed to do this, but you should try it and see if it works," and that kind of thing. So
That's awful
um,
that they're not able to do stuff like that. They're so
it just is
archaic.
random stuff. It could be about a pre-sale link. It's a certain company versus others, and just all
Uh,
that kind of stuff that they move a lot more slowly.
yeah. Okay. Um, so when you say more friendly, what does that mean? You're more friendly than a major label or publisher.
Our deals are all of our deals are just we want our deals to be deals where artists are earning money, that we are
Okay.
paying them royalties. Oftentimes when you sign with a major, you might get a bigger check up front, but you may not see another check ever
Yep.
from a major. So it can be very hard to recoup that based on that recoupment structure and all the fees and all that too. So it's it's our deals are a lot more straightforward, no bells and whistles, and we want. Uh, I love writing checks to my artists. That
Uh,
means that they're successful
I
and
love
that
that.
things are going well. Yeah.
I love that. In the realm of marketing, what are some of the things that you're seeing now with some of your artists? Is there a specific artist in your roster or songwriter that you're seeing maybe they're doing something really cool on social media that's working really well, or maybe they're doing something on a different platform that's doing really well?
Um, that's always the question. I
Yeah,
think I'm very excited about Discord at the moment. I
I
think
love Discord.
Discord is yeah. I think it's that's definitely where the next we're going to see some artists pop. I think some already have. Like
Hmm.
I think a lot of the hyper pop world have come from Discord and that community. But I think I'm very excited to see what comes from there.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I just did a really big EDM.com feature probably 6 to 7 months ago on Discord
Cool.
where I spoke
Oh,
with
cool.
a bunch of artists and creatives and how they're kind of fostering their communities on it. And it's really interesting to see how every one of them was different. There was one called, I think their name was Death Pact, and they dropped Easter eggs in their Discord server that gave them hints at a live festival on where this golden mask would
Hmm.
be, and then they get this golden mask and then the fans pass that around and they share who has the golden mask within the Discord. It's just really, really elaborate stuff.
No,
um,
it's interesting. I mean, it's kind of taking a page from like the Web3 world. It's interesting to even just think about fans, because in Web3 you can have far fewer people engaged in something, but make a lot more money than kind of how you would on streaming platforms and all that. And so I think it's interesting to think about Discord in that sense for artist communities as well, because if you have, a couple thousand fans, but who are very engaged and very active,
yeah,
that is more valuable than having a million fans who are kind of like not really paying attention to what you're doing.
right.
So it's just about how you use it. And so I think there's going to be a lot. I think we're going to see a lot coming from there.
Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on Web3? And can you break that down as to what Web3 actually means?
I mean, Web3. I guess I'm probably not the right person to be doing this properly, but it's if we're in Web 2 now, where it's about these big corporations and big publicly traded companies kind of dictating what how creators are paid and how content is rolled out. Web3 is a lot, the power is a lot more in the hands of the creator,
Mm.
and it's a lot more, using blockchain technology. It's a lot more. You can still be paid for your work even as it grows. Basically, you're a lot more autonomous. So so I think in terms of music, I don't think we've even scratched the surface on kind of what that's going to look like. And obviously, all of everything is in the tubes right now in the market, but it's we'll have to kind of see where everything nets out. But I think there are some still in a very conceptual phase. But it's I think there are some exciting ideas being talked about for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any artists that you're working with that are in Web3 or really kind of diving in headfirst?
I don't personally, but I am doing an NFT drop for one of my artists named Channel Trace, who is doing a collab with an artist who is an NFT artist or a Web3 artist who's
Okay.
it's a DAO who is an artist called OMG Kirby. So we're kind of dipping our toes into that space.
Okay. And for me, I don't really I understand the concept of NFTs, but at the same time I don't. So can you explain like what is, I mean, maybe you can't discuss the details of the project, but can you give an overview of what the NFT is and why it's so different for everybody? Because I feel like if somebody's dropping an NFT for 2 Ethereum, for example, well, the price of Ethereum right now is maybe $1,000. It's dropped significantly. So that's $2,000, which is not something the average everyday fan has to just throw at an artist or for a piece of art. And then that art maybe go down in value, or it may skyrocket and quadruple or 10x. So it's like I feel like the barrier of entry is much higher. You have to have, unless the artist has a much lower NFT, cheaper priced NFT, then you can maybe get in. But for somebody like myself and even just everyday fans, they don't have $2,000 to throw at an NFT.
I think right now the NFT marketplace isn't for regular people. It's for Web3 people.
Okay.
And it's for people who are excited, who made a ton of money over the last few years and who are excited to reinvest that money into the space because they believe in it or because they see, a different sort of payout. But I don't think it's for, it's all Web3 enthusiasts at the moment. It's not for regular people.
And do you think that's going to expand to more average consumers?
I do, but I think the model's going to evolve.
Okay.
Because obviously buying, there are just so few. The whole point, the concept behind these NFTs are that they are rare, items.
Yeah.
And in the same way that like you can buy a print of an Andy Warhol soup can.
Sure.
But most of us probably don't have, I don't know how much, the $50 million to buy the original soup can that's hanging in the Museum of Modern Art in New York.
Yeah.
And so I think it's that concept that like if you're going to buy the original, it's a true rare item and it's a collectible, just in the digital space. And you just have to you have to think about it kind of in those terms.
Yeah, and I'm seeing, a lot of artists are offering, like, if you buy this NFT or you purchase this or you give so much money, you get lifetime access to all of the shows, you get VIP tickets to the next 10 shows and, whatever. I believe Deadmau5 has done something very similar to where he's giving like lifetime access to shows or whatever.
I mean, I don't think any of those models are particularly exciting to me, like kind of what the current music, Web3 stuff is. I think that's the same thing as a fan club. That's not like new or innovative. And I think and people also need to figure out too, like, what is a music NFT? Is it an audio-visual piece? Is it just an audio piece? Is it, and so I think there's a lot of sort of thinking and, I think we'll see it evolve a lot over the next year to 2 years.
Yeah. And I think too, I've seen a lot of NFT scams as well. NFT
for sure.
Crypto scams. So it's like the market, it's like something happens, something good finally happens for artists, and then you get all these scam artists coming in. So it's like now it's becoming more difficult to sift through what's a scam and what's legit. I found it's like I don't
Yeah,
really
for
want to.
sure.
I get more scared about throwing my money at something when it's like I don't even know if this is legit.
No, I mean it can be quite. I mean, it took me a while to really honestly understand the landscape and to navigate it, and it's very overwhelming to kind of if you don't know what you're looking at or what you're doing, it really takes time to kind of understand the context and understand what's important, who's relevant, and all that.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely does. Um, okay, so I want to dig into the marketing a little bit and what do you guys do to market some of your artists? Do you have a specific marketing strategy that you do when you have a new song coming out or an album or anything like that? What are some of the avenues that you're using for marketing these days?
I mean, it's ever changing.
Sure,
Usually something that works once never works again.
sure.
But it's yeah. I mean, we do a lot of different stuff. I'm a big fan of a lot of underground marketing stuff.
Mm.
Like uh, we do a lot of meme campaigns, and we do
Oh,
a lot of we infiltrate discords, and to me, like good marketing is something that you don't know is marketing.
sure.
And so, I have an army of, teenagers who are on the forefront of knowing about kind of what the cool next thing is. And to me, that's what moves culture.
Hmm.
And, of course, yes, we do advertising. Yes, we do, you know, YouTube pre-roll ads and all that kind of stuff. But, and that works to a degree and there are reasons to do those things. But to me, what gets me excited is some of the more underground stuff.
Yeah, that's cool, and that's why I like to ask that question is everybody's like, "Well, it depends." I'm like, "Well, there's gotta be something in the last week or even month that you've like, wow, this is really cool,' or even some new program or a platform or a new strategy, because it's
Yeah.
always, like you said, ever evolving. So it's why I'm always
Yeah.
like, "Oh, yeah, I just discovered this new offshoot of Facebook. They do this platform, and they can market ads and get billboards and do this all for this price," and it's like, "Okay, well, that's I've never heard of that, but
Right. Right.
if it's a cool technique." You
Right.
mentioned meme campaigns. What in the hell is a meme campaign?
I mean, I'm sure you look at memes all
Yeah.
day, every day, and it's a part of what we consume online. And so there's creative ways. A lot of what memes you're looking at are things that people paid for, and
Mm.
things that all these people. There's a whole ecosystem of that. But so we try to just get creative about how to get our you know a lot of times it's hopping on a trend that's already happening or a meme that's already happening and just kind of putting our artist or our music behind it and just getting really, really creative with that.
Have you seen anything kinda go viral on TikTok or any success on TikTok?
Oh, definitely. We had an artist a few years ago have a song completely blow up on TikTok. So, yeah, it totally depends.
Okay. And what were some of the things that happened after that TikTok went viral? Like, what opportunities arose from that?
We had all of the major labels drooling, trying to sign this artist and paid an exorbitant amount of money. So,
And did they
uh,
ultimately sign to a label?
yes.
Okay.
I
Well,
mean, they were signed to me, and then we did a deal with the label. But
sure.
yes,
Cool.
yeah,
That's very cool.
yeah.
When you talk about you mentioned Discord raids as well. What is that? Is
Mhm.
that when you're kind of jumping into a server and mentioning, "Hey, it's so and so," or what does that look
Yeah, it
like?
depends. I can't reveal too many of my secrets, but it depends. I think it's just about you want things to be authentic, and you want
Yeah.
to kind of you're going to listen to if someone you trust is talking about something versus a random person or seeing an ad. So it's just about kind of breaking into those communities and you know uh, trying to talk about the music in an authentic way.
Sure. Cool. Yeah, I love Discord. I created a community for myself and podcasting and music and whatnot, and
Cool.
it's kind of cool. I haven't really figured out how to use it and how I want to continue pushing it, but I love the platform. I love how easy it is to use. I love how it just always seems to work, which is very
Mhm.
rare with technology these days. Um, so transitioning a little bit, I want to talk. You mentioned how you work so much. I want to talk about how, as a business owner and a creative, how you kind of manage your like a work life balance and how you kind of keep mental
Mhm.
health so important because it's so important these days. How do you keep work life balance?
I don't have a work life balance, so I
Oh,
don't know what that means.
oh,
but uh, but it's yeah, I don't know. Um, I work a lot. I think I try to, my artists call me at all, hours of the day and night. I try to, keep boundaries there as best I can, but it's kind of part of the job. So
Hmm.
but yeah, no, I don't know. I try to, my artists know I'm a person that goes to bed very early, so they can't call me past, if they call me past a certain time, I'm not going to answer,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I don't know. I definitely work too much and have to get better at prioritizing myself.
That's fair. I definitely do the same to some extent. Is you just work, work, work. But if there's a project that's got to get done, it's got to get done.
Yeah, totally.
Totally understand that. Um, so let's transition into some publishing. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on if do you look for any you don't look for anything specific when it comes to publishing like you would signing to a label, or is that a little bit different?
Publishing is a little bit different, because
Okay,
it's not necessarily about signing an artist. It could be about
sure,
signing a producer or a writer. And so,
sure.
sometimes some of the people we're working with or we're talking to right now are some collaborators that we work with a lot,
Mm,
or people. It could be about working with someone who publishing. It's more about building. They're trying to get cuts and trying to build their writing.
mhm,
So it could be about working with someone in a totally different genre or all of that too. So it depends. I think it's about finding people who are for all of this, for all the artists, whether they're on the publishing side, label, or management. It's about people who, I think the most important thing that we look for is work ethic.
mm,
Um, because in LA especially, everyone's talented,
yeah,
and it's really about people. This job is really, to be an artist or to be a writer and producer, it's really, really hard, and you have to really want it badly. And so it's really, to me, the most important thing is just that people are willing to kind of do whatever it takes.
mm. So, once you sign somebody to publishing, are you pushing them to get into other sessions? Are you connecting them with artists in your roster to work on music? What does that kind of look like from the songwriter or producer perspective?
Yeah, all of the above. My team will help, and we work with the hypnosis team to help put them in
Mm,
other writing sessions. And we, part of, it's really, especially if you're a writer or producer, it's really hard uh, to get cuts, and that's the challenge. And
yeah.
so it's a lot of, when you sign to us, you are immediately kind of put into our ecosystem, and we'll definitely get cuts. So
Okay. And how many artists do you have signed under publishing management and your label?
I don't know. I have to think about that. But management is just three artists, and
Okay.
label is a bit more.
Okay.
And then publishing, we just started this company actually a couple months ago, so we are signing our first couple writers as we speak.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And how many people do you have on the Godmode team? Is it just you and was it Nick?
There are four of us, so
Four
we're
of you.
pretty small. Yep,
Okay. Wow. That is a small team for so much work.
it
And
is.
so what are you the CEO and what does Nick do?
Mhm. Nick really just is our sort of like creative head.
Okay.
He produces a lot of the music that we put out. And so he's really in charge of that, and has a lot of creative ideas for our business.
Okay. And then the other two people are more like daily operations, or what are their
Yeah,
roles?
basically. One of them is more music focused. He helps out. We also have two studios here, so he helps
Oh,
run those studios. And the other one is she's my day to day manager across the roster, and really helps out on across the label as well.
cool. Cool. That's very cool.
She and I are the crazy people running ragged. So
Yeah, no, that's we need people like that, and kudos to you for being able to do all that. It's definitely not easy. So what kind of genres are you guys working with? Do you work with everything, or is it more specific to a specific genre?
we aren't we work with stuff across the board. We have some rap, we have some electronic, we have some more pop or more indie pop, I guess you could say. But yeah, we're not. I think probably the only type of music I wouldn't know how to do is country music. So
That's music to my ears. I'm not a big fan of country music either. So
I'm not. I mean, I'm not a fan. I don't really know that much about it. So
yeah, sure.
kind of its own world.
It is. It's its own world, and it's over in Nashville. So
Yes.
it lives over there. Um, so what kind of music typically do you listen to on a day to day?
Oh, I don't even know. What is that? I don't know what the right answer is to that.
Who are
Um,
like your top 3 favorite artists right now?
I honestly I listen to a lot of classical music,
Mm,
and I listen to a lot of minimal techno.
ah,
It's
that's
so
awesome.
I listen to it's uh, yeah. Or I listen to some older music too.
Sure.
Um, but recently, I've been listening to a lot of Bill Withers.
Ah, classic. Yeah,
So, but
that's
yeah, at my desk or just sort of in the car, I listen to a lot of you know classical or more minimal techno. Just makes me it's very peaceful.
it's
So
very peaceful. Yeah.
yes.
Interesting. Um, cool. Well, I want to keep this kind of short. I don't want
Sure.
to keep, I know you're busy. I've got a few other things to take care of today. So I think we got a lot of really good information. I
Cool.
appreciate you chatting with me.
Of course.
How can the listeners keep up with you and God mode?
Yeah, I mean, we're on socials at Godmode Music, most places. I'm at Talya Godmode. And yeah, pretty easy to find.
Sure, and I'll link everything in the show notes below as well.
Perfect.
Cool.